Good evening. How is everybody at home? You may think, upon seeing this little pot of green once again, that I am lying, or that I was lying last week. But no, I have no intention of painting my fireflies today, because they're all done. We said last week that I was just painting the green on the uniform. I got a few of them done on stream. And I said I'm just going to finish the rest on the streams, off of stream, so that we can move on to the next model, or the next squad. So I've got a bunch of these fireflies now, all highlighted on their uniform, the webbing, the weapons, the backpack, and all the rest of it. I have not yet tackled the two Roberta's wells. Roberta's is Wells's, but we did say that I was going to pay a bit more attention to those two and to the officers. So it's these two and this one. So these are the various special edition models for the Fireflies, starter set, starter army, and the reloading diorama. So these are all going to be officers of various types, probably just NCOs actually, rather than proper officers. Although this guy in his sheepskin jacket does look really cool. But these two, these three and the two Roberta's Wells will be, they will continue in their painting journey for a little bit longer, just to make them a little nicer than the infantry. The infantry looks pretty good. I'm happy with how they've come out, but they are kind of what I would expect from regular infantry for a game like Konflikt, and so painting up the characters a little nicer, we'll do that another time. Plenty to do on these, not just a bit of green on the uniform, plenty of other things as well. But if I put these aside over there and do not tip them over at all, let's drag out the box that you have seen in the thumbnail. And that is largely my Stahltruppen, including, again, some of the special character models, which I will find as we go through. I have most of these will be the regular plastic ones with Sturmgewehr 2 or the anti-tank gun. Crazy that an infantry squad can carry an actual anti-tank gun, and if I can find one here, that there'll definitely be one here somewhere. Not you, not you. Here we go. Light machine gun. I've got a few light machine guns knocking around in here. This one is actually the counterpart to the reloading special model for the Americans. This is the reloading special model for the Axis, and you may notice my commander. He is on a slightly larger base. Everyone else is on 32s. He's on a 40. We saw Wall of Games doing that at the open day, so I thought I'd follow suit. And this one is from the starter set. And then one of them in here, which we will find as we go through, is from the starter army. But also, for the sake of consistency, and I don't like perfect consistency, but I like to keep things stylistically matching rather than strictly matching. Here is my Vogelspinne. I've got energy cannon turret. I've got the anti-air autocannon turret here with just this is just fun to play with. It's really satisfying just how smooth it moves. It's great. And I also have the most widely used, but I think worst loadout for the Vogelspinne, which is the anti-tank gun and autocannon combo. This one has an open hatch, and I have tank commander, vehicle commander to put in there. So all of that will be getting done. And if the last 3 months of painting fireflies has anything to go by, these will take quite a while to do. So sit tight, grab yourself a cup of tea or a beverage of other description, like I have. Not sponsored. And let's get stuck in. So, Andre, hi, how you doing? Hey there, nice to see you again. Now, put those things away and paint some more fireflies. No, we are done with the fireflies for the moment. I have checked my PO box. I've had gifts of 16 boxes of fireflies. Thankfully, that is not true. I also don't have a PO box. No, if people start sending me... Someone has my address. I know that someone does, because I was sent, on 2 occasions, I was sent mystery boxes, and by mystery boxes, I mean, I don't know who sent them. Which is worrying, but it is what it is. Thankfully, no one sent me any weird stuff or dangerous stuff. They've just sent, like, essentially some recast models. I did mention that a little while back. But no one sent me fireflies, and I hope that continues. The not sending me fireflies is something that can continue. Michael Gallagher, hi, how you doing? Hello, mate. Have just finished painting my first 8 out of the 24. Looking forward to seeing your work. Have you added equipment to the rear? I'm just working on mine and curious to see. Are we talking about the Stahltruppen or the fireflies? I did put a couple of things. All of the ammunition and knives and even one of the Sturmgewehr 2 have attachments for the belt. So I'm assuming this is what you're talking about. I do have a few. I didn't really go crazy with it. Generally speaking, when I make infantry models, I don't put stuff on the belts. But there's one with a knife. This one's got ammunition for his grenade launcher. I do have a few here and there that have something. But it's not generally something that I kind of go to town on. My gunslinger kind of pose here. He's got another magazine for the Sturmgewehr 2. I'm sure I've got a light machine gun magazine. I'm sure I've got some Panzerfaust ammunition as well around. But I think I've probably got more on my Stahltruppen than I do on any other kit, because when I built these, actually this was the focus of my video when I built them, is that I wanted to use every single component from the sprue. And so I used one sprue and I built as many models as you can. And then I kept using parts from that sprue with only using the minimum parts I needed from the next sprue. So basically torsos and legs. So I started using torsos and legs from the second sprue, and then the third sprue, and then the fourth sprue, until the first sprue was completely empty. And part of that meant I've got a bunch of stuff on belts that I usually wouldn't. Alexander Cross, hi, how you doing? How's it going, dude? It is going. It is definitely going. Damn Legion Shorts, hi, how you doing? Morning, Ed. Morning for you, good. Recently finished painting my bolt action army and even acquired a Churchill Avery. It's K47 adjacent. Bolt action is K47 adjacent. That is definitely a true statement. Avery is 36-inch range, 4-inch blast, I think. Is that right? Because if it's a 3 or a 4-inch blast, that's definitely valuable in conflict. So I have chosen for my Stahltruppen, even though I've painted all of my bolt action Germans with a very Dunkelgelb kind of style, I want to keep similar to it, but I want to punch up the saturation. And so rather than using let me grab this color. So this is the paint that I use for my bolt action Germans, vehicles and infantry, mixed with black to darken it, especially for shadows, but also for the mid-tone. And I kind of go up to this, it's a very desaturated blue-grey. I kind of go up just close to it being unmixed for the highlight, for the highest highlight. Whereas now, for the Stahltruppen and for probably all of my Konflikt Axis, I will be going for that. That's a big difference. That's much more saturated. It is still kind of a desaturated bluey green. It's kind of a bit white teal, but it is much more saturated than the blue grey that I've been using it before. And so the first step is to mix some of this up with some black, because I definitely want to tone it down and build up, because there's plenty of opportunity to put in ever more highlights. Ratman, hi, how you doing? K47 is bolt action. Essentially, Konflikt 47 second edition is bolt action 3.5. Dexton's Gaming, hi, how you doing? Heavy howitzer, so yeah, 4-inch, yeah, nasty. Damn Legion says 4-foot blast petard mortar, the entire board. Yuli, hi, how you doing? She says, what's up everybody? Ironically, I was the one painting fireflies this weekend. The curse never leaves. It's like I have to pass the curse on. So I finish painting the fireflies and you have to pick up the painting, and then at some point when you finish painting the fireflies, you'll have to curse someone else and they will have to paint fireflies. So I'm not convinced I have gone anything like as saturated as I wanted to on this. So the way I'm painting these, let's get a bit closer. Just a bit closer. So you can just about see it in places on the camera, but I've left an edge around each piece in basically the primer color, and then I'm highlighting the middle with this teal black mix, and it's only a little bit brighter than what I had before, and I think I want to go much further than that. Given that I'm going to be adding a wash over this, I can go quite strong at this stage because the wash will help to blend it together. I would love to do some proper painting and actually blend it myself, but given that I've got 20 of these Stahltruppens to get through, I think cheating is fine. So I'm going to add a bunch more teal into my mix. It is still a very desaturated grey. Just the black is always a very strong pigment, no matter the brand, really. Yeah, I think that's kind of the value that I want, but it's too watered down Let's see if I can get some of this water out of it. Hey Alexander, you might remember I have a bolt action army for the USA. Are models compatible without having to buy a mech for your list? So if you already play bolt action and you want to switch over to Conflict 47, there are some minimum things that you do need to buy, but it's very easy to make the switch. Firstly, the rules are very similar. Annoyingly, they're not as similar as I would like them to be. There are quite a few small changes that I think, given that the games were released within a year of each other, or actually just over a year apart, I wish that the rules had been a little more consistent between the two, but that's fine. But when it comes to models, you can use any bolt action unit, infantry unit, as a basic infantry unit in Conflict, and you can use any bolt action vehicle in like an armored platoon in Conflict. So you've got plenty of models that you can technically use. However, the minimum requirements for the assault platoon is one officer, as you would expect, but that can be a bolt action officer. Doesn't have to be a Conflict unit version. But then the two minimum squads. So the assault platoon is the Conflict equivalent of the rifle platoon in bolt action. So it's your basic starting point. And in the same way that you have officer and two squads minimum in a rifle platoon, you have the same in Conflict. But the two minimum squads have to be Conflict 47 squads. If you have additional squads, they can be bolt action squads if you wanted, but the absolute minimum is 2 squads of Conflict. However, everything in Conflict 47 is massively more powerful. Everything is faster, everything hits harder, everything has more shots. And so if you turn up with just a bolt action army with your 2 minimum squads, you might not have a good time. You might be on the losing side more often than not. That's not to say it can't be fun to bring that as a silly list, but you do want to consider a bit more of a balance in terms of bringing having a few bolt action units, but having quite a few Conflict units as well. Getting started is easy because you only need those two infantry squads, but you will very quickly find that you want to expand with other units as you play. So absolutely get stuck in. You can make that switch very easily just with the 2 squads, and then as you play a few games, just build up with. It's the same with starting any game, really. You start off small and you build up to a full-size list, whereas here you're starting with a full-size basic list and then transitioning over slowly bit by bit into a Conflict 47 list, if you see my meaning there. Clove, hi, how you doing? Clove says paint Stahltruppen with random black paint as the base, armor is charcoal or greyish for an NCO, pauldrons and helmet are painted dark green. Cool. That's very similar to the, or at least the way I'm reading that, it's very similar to the way I do my Panzergrau, or Dunkelgrau rather. And whilst I do want the similar kind of effect between my Stahltruppen and my bolt action vehicles, I really want to push saturation by using that really bright teal that I've got here. Andre says, thanks for the easy army tip. Adding models to the list as I build them. Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. I've got too much of a collection to really keep track of that anymore. But when I was building lists, when I was building up my forces for each faction, I would have 2 easy army lists. And the first one was just everything I have. And the second one was whatever I was picking for the next game. So I could add stuff and remove stuff there. To work out what I wanted to bring, and then check on the first list to say, oh, do I have enough infantry for this squad? Do I have an extra vehicle that I can bring? That kind of thing. It is a bit of a finicky website, but it's definitely very useful. And I think with the alternatives that exist at the moment, it's probably the best. So my plan for the Stahltruppen overall, I think this is about the brightness I want at the moment. I'm going to put a wash over everything, as I always do, which is going to let that down quite a lot. But then I'm going to do an edge highlight over all of the armor, but not over the uniform. So you can actually see some of the fabric of the uniform, like in the armor, in the cracks in the armor. And so I'm going to highlight that differently, the armor and the uniform differently. Should probably bring up some more of this because I am going through it quite quickly. There we go. So at the moment, I don't necessarily have to be particularly neat, although I shouldn't be too messy. Should also be in focus, which would be nice. There we go. How's that for focus? Ratman says, I've had to start writing the tank names on the bottoms, Japanese names are. When you don't speak the language, yeah, it can be hard to keep track of what's a Chiha and what's a Hago and what's a Toldi. And I can't think of any other examples. That was a short joke. And what even is a Sherman anyway? Kesa. So speaking of Japanese tank names and jokes, somebody in my local group who plays Japanese quite regularly, Japanese and Brits, he asked me to print him a couple of Hokai armored transports. And the Hokai have actually become my favourite transports in Konflikt 47 for my assault frames. But he's using them in bolt action. And he very specifically asked for 2 of them, not 1. He wanted 2 Hokais. Because he was going to make the pun of, instead of calling them Hokai, he would call them Hoki. Except he would only call one of them Hoki, and he would call the other one Koki. Because they're the Hokey Koki. And you put one leg in, you put one leg out, and shake it all about. And I assume only people in England will get that joke, because that is a nursery rhyme that we have over here. It's funny though, trust me, it's funny. It really is. Yudi says, don't worry, Warlord runs their non-English text through Google Translate, so everything gets accounted for. Oh boy. I have heard some of the stuff of Warlord Games translation being suboptimal. Chloe says, yeah, don't get it. Understandable. See, annoyingly, I keep doing that, which is drifting all of the way through the focal plane. It's also still on the warm side, and so having a fixed position for a long period of time just isn't that nice. Yudi says, in good news, about an hour ago, Warlord published Winter Soviets and implied they would be used in the next expansion. Alaska or Antarctica. The next expansion for Konflikt. Be good to see the Soviets in somewhere. Especially now they have the plastics. Hopefully they don't take over our book. As the Japanese, we've been waiting. We're always last in bolt action, so coming in kind of in the middle of the field in Konflikt would be nice. Yeah, that's kind of the effect I'm going for at the moment. So this is pre-wash, just a bit of a middling highlight. Building up the center of the panel so that when I use the wash, that'll all smooth out, and then I'll put an edge highlight so we have this gradient of very bright on the edge to the immediately to the darkest point, and then up to kind of a mid-tone throughout most of it. Very strong effect on vehicles. I do like it with a more desaturated, a bold but desaturated color, like a military dark green, or the blue grey that I use for Germans, or tan for my British. But this is going to be a much more saturated version of that. So what I've just done there is paint one model. I have 20 to go through. So, off with you. And on with the next one. And let's just keep that going. Just like the fireflies, this is going to be a long haul thing. Ratman says, Hokey Koki is a British song from 1985. Is it 80? I thought it was way older than that. It's a silly one that always gets played at the end of night at weddings and parties. I always thought of it as a kid song. Maybe it's just I was a kid at the time. Clove says, still editing our video together. Decided to make 2 separate videos. One being K-47 being cheaper, and the other one how to set up an Empire of Japan armor set. Empire of Japan starter set. Titles still work in production. Yeah, so Clove and myself had a little chat about the Japanese starter set, or the Japanese starter army specifically, and how I would set that up. Given that I have used all of the units in the starter set quite extensively now, I have a good idea of what to expect from them and kind of how to place them on the battlefield as best you can. Oh no. Oh, I'm going to have to be careful of that. So this is something I know about my painting handle, is that, yeah, if you have a long gun barrel or a flag or a bayonet or a spear or anything like that, you can easily snap it off. So I'm going to have to be careful when I do the anti-tank guns. In fact, if I pull those 3 out, because I think I've got 3, if I paint those 3 first, then I can concentrate on that, be aware of it, and not absolutely destroy these guys. Because that, oh, it's slightly bent barrel. It's okay, we can fix it. Edie says, yes, for Konflikt. Old Winter Soviets kit, so nothing new. Old, what? First edition Konflikt models. Edie says, hoping the Japanese take center stage of the next expansion. They are. It's essentially Invasion America is the Japanese invading America. That's the main part of it. With the power imbalances, the Walker getting delayed, it would be the least they deserve. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was supposed to be the Walker and the Ghosts got released at the same time with the book, but the Walker is getting delayed, but the Ghosts are coming out on time, it seems. So not too much of a disaster. Alexander says, how do you manage to stop your paints from drying so fast in this heat? Ferrero Rocher is the answer to all of your desires. Specifically, you take the bottom of the plastic packet, you put a massive sponge in it, fill it with water, and then you put some baking paper over the top, and hey presto, you got yourself a wet palette. I do not understand why people spend 30 quid, 40 quid, 50 quid on a wet palette when you literally can make a wet palette out of junk from your kitchen and it's the same effectiveness. This is equally as effective as any wet palette you can buy. And yeah, this is what I'm working with at the moment. Now that I've got it out, I'll show you. So I've got some black and I've got that teal, and I'm mixing it together in the middle to get... I'm trying to keep it fairly bright in terms of the gradient between the black and the teal. I'm keeping it more on this side, so I'm just pulling in a little bit of black to keep it... just to give it the darker edge. But I'm mixing mostly teal at the moment. It is a running joke in the UK that Ferrero Rocher makes the best wet palettes. And it comes with free chocolate. Right, how is that? That is too bright. That is too heavy. So let's rinse off the brush and start again. Yeah, that just about works. Not liking how that's laid out. So what I might be able to do is just put some more black into it. Go around the edge. That's better. Andre says, just bought a wet palette. Oh no! I'm sorry. Oh, it made me feel like a big boy painter. Thanks for raining on my parade. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make fun of you. I was not aware of that. Yeah, there are certain things in wargaming, certain tools, certain equipment, certain supplies that you can just have for free, and or you can go into a hobby shop and spend vast amounts of money on them. And the thing is, the wet palette that you bought will work, so it's not a scam in any kind of way. It's not like a product that won't do what it says it will do. It's just that what it says it will do is such a basic principle that you can just achieve the same thing with a sponge, some baking paper, and a plastic container. It's similar to baking basing material. Similar to basing material is what I was trying to say there. In that you can spend £5, £10, £20 on a pot of gunk to put on your base to make it look like they're walking over sand or gravel or mud or whatever it might be. Or you can get some baking powder from the kitchen, super glue that down, let it dry and paint it, and hey presto, you've got sand for nearly free. Nearly free. The amount of baking powder used and the cost of baking powder, so cheap in comparison. If you take sand, like actual real sand, it makes perfect gravel. So the grains of sand are far too big to be sand in scale, but it's perfect for being gravel in scale. So paint that black and grey, and you've got yourself like rubble or gravel on the floor for someone to be crunching over. There are thousands of other examples as well, but those are just the ones that come to mind. Dexter's Gaming Corner, or Dextions. Apologies for the pronunciation. Hi, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Found one of those self-filling brush washers at Five Below US discount shop for $5. Self-filling brush washers. I do not know what you mean by self-filling brush washer. Andre says, it's fine. I improvise most stuff. Decide to spend money this time, as it came with a bunch of brushes in different sizes. Yeah. Like I said, it's not it's not something that you're gonna regret buying and never use, because you probably will end up using it quite heavily. So it's not unreasonable. It's actually interesting that I didn't discover wet palettes for a very long time, because they weren't really commonly used. Like when I was younger, when I was first painting, they've existed for hundreds of years, but they weren't common to use in wargaming at the time. And so I've gone for many years of painting without even knowing what one was, and eventually I saw probably a YouTube video in the last 5 years, 10 years about a wet palette, and I thought that's an interesting idea. I understand the basic principle and science behind it in terms of it keeping moisture flowing through the paint as it evaporates away. In theory, keeping your paints consistently diluted. It does not keep them consistent. You do still need to check on them, but it certainly helps maintain them for longer than they would on just a dry palette, and it stops your pots from drying out if you're painting straight from the pot. But I thought, I'm not sure if I want to buy one, so I'm going to make one. So I just looked at it, and it's like, it's a sponge, the semi-permeable paper on top, and then just a plastic container. So I tried a couple of different types of paper that I had in-house, and eventually I hit on baking paper, working quite well. I did eventually find lots of other people also talking about baking paper. Oh, a point to reference. When I say baking paper, that's English baking paper, which can be called different things in different countries. So it can be called parchment paper, it can be called cooking paper in different parts of the world. So check exactly what that means, what the translation is for different languages, so that you get the right stuff. But again, if you have the right type of paper in your kitchen, you can just have some of that for nearly free. Dexton's World says... Sorry, Dexton says Green Stuff World makes one. I'm not sure what it's actually called. Is that the... It's like a hamster water bottle feeder gravity thing with like a little spot to rinse your brush, and then you push it down and it throws the water into the bottom, and then it automatically refills from the gravity feed. Because I have absolutely no idea what that's meant to do. Because I have water here, and I have clean water that I usually keep nearby, but I've actually left it downstairs because I've been teaching some people how to paint recently. Dexter says, yep, I got it. So the one thing I think it's trying to do, just thinking about it now, is that you're always rinsing the brush with freshly clean water, rather than this, which has got several months worth of paint in it. And given that I have several months worth of paint in mine, you can clearly see how much I care about such a thing, which is to say not a lot. Although saying that, I do tip out from my water pot into my wet palette and then refill my water pot, so it is cleaner, if you believe that. Ah. Oh, it's okay. I didn't smash the barrel again. I feel like I missed a comment somewhere. Sorry. I am trying to paint at the same time. I was hoping that this would be more of a stippled effect, but I'm having far too much water in both my black and my teal, so I can't really dry it out in any way. That's one of the advantages of having thick paint in the paint pot, is that if you overthin your paint, you just add more paint and the dilution goes down again. Yeah, so that's the second one done. And we're 45 minutes into the stream. We are making good progress. Oh dear. Stahltruppen month, here we go. I've just had a thought. I could design, like technically it's possible, but I'm not sure how easy it is to implement. But I could design some kind of a stop for this. So that if you put a model with a gun barrel or a spear or a flag or something that would interfere with the mechanism, there would be some kind of stop that you could put in here, so as you turn it, it would actually stop it from turning any further, thus protecting the model. Because at the moment, the thing that's stopping movement is the gun barrel here. I think maybe if I made a ridge around here with a bunch of pegs in it, or a bunch of peg holes, then you could place a peg in there, so as it went around, it's like I'd put one here and it would press against this surface, so as that peg touched there, it would stop and it would prevent me from pushing the model into the mechanism. Would that be effective? That seems very... It seems like a very fiddly way of solving that problem. Andre says, isn't having the bases done already get in the way of painting? Not necessarily. In the case of these, most of the basing is below foot height. There are a couple, like the one in my hand, but also the officer, where they've got like a box of stuff. So I'm just going to have to be a tiny bit careful when I paint their feet. And actually you can see just around the edge here, I should probably wash the brush so it doesn't dry off, where I've glued the model, that needs to be repainted. Otherwise there's that line around there, but that's fine, that's easy to fix. Most of the models here, they're actually standing on the ground cover, like, so I can paint, I can easily get in here, paint the sole of the boot, paint the top of the boot, paint the side of the boot, no problem, without interfering with the base. So in this case, it's not interfering at all. Something like this can get in the way, but I'm actually not finding that at all, because I'm just finding an angle where I can get to where I need to get to, rather than trying to press through the, so I can come around here. I can get to everything. Certainly you could end up with a very elaborate base, and you can certainly end up with, or you can certainly want to use techniques that are messy, that would interfere with things. Sorry, that totally distracted me. I have absolutely no idea what I was talking about now. Yeah, the order that you paint, or the order that you do basing, is just up to how you decide to do the basing and in what order you think is the most convenient. Not even the most convenient, because there's many ways of doing it. It's just whichever way suits your style. Because you might want to do the basing separately so that you don't get paint from the model onto the base and paint from the base onto the model. But in other times, you actually might want to overlap, particularly if you're doing like a dusty effect. Maybe you want a little bit of dust on the boots of the model, so you paint the model first, put them on the base, and then paint the dust effect in. Kind of ties the model into the environment. I guess there's no real wrong answer. It's just a case of like being deliberate about it, choosing the way that you want it to look, and going for the technique that will get you there. Andre says, I use childproof medicine jars as handles. I can turn the model or hold the lid and stop it from spinning. Can you base a solution off of that? I think we're looking at kind of different things there. Need more teal. Well, that was all of the teal, and that's not tealy enough. So let's grab some more teal. So the reason why I designed this, because like having just a stick or a medicine bottle or a random lump of plastic that you glue the model to will absolutely do you for a lot of painting. But there's two things that this does. One of them was intentional, one of them is not, that make me not want to go back to any other system. And the first one, and this is the way I designed it, is that I can hold the model upside down. So if I want to paint underneath an armor panel or underneath the hat, or if I want to get underneath the leg into a boot, into something like that, then I can really get into whatever part of the model I want to get into by just moving the model to make it nice and easy to reach, rather than straining around and having hands shaking because I'm at a weird angle. The unintended thing that has become my favorite part of this is that this is the natural angle for me to paint at. So I see constantly in loads and loads of videos, people will have some basic painting handle where the model is stuck at just in line with the handle, and they will be holding it like this, where all of the handle is not in their hand, and they're just pinching the top of the handle so that they can rest the model at this angle so that they can paint the model. Whereas my handle, because I have this rotation involved, I can hold that with my whole hand, tilt the model to that nice angle, even press it down on the table while I'm doing it, making it nice and stable. And I can paint at the perfect angle for whatever part of the model that I'm painting. I think I did a good job. Not that I wish to boast or anything. I think I did a good job of building this painting handle. And if you would like to know more about my painting handle, there is a link in the description, or at least there bloody well should be a link in the description, to the video I made when I released it. And as has become a running theme, I'm bad at advertising, so I've sold like 2 of them, or maybe a bit more than 2, I think, but not many. Andre says, it's a nice handle. If I ever have room for a 3D printer, I'll buy one. 3D printing is a whole hobby in itself. And whilst it is easier now than it was when I started, it's still a lot of effort to get into it. And so what the common phrase is that you maybe don't want a 3D printer. You want a friend with a 3D printer, because they'll do all their printing, all the printing for you. I know you've not got a big gaming group that you can ask around in, unfortunately. That's what I usually suggest. Is just every gaming group has someone with a 3D printer. Clove says, it's true, I am the friend with a 3D printer. I am also, for my group, the friend with a 3D printer. Very much the case. Which is why I got lumped with the Sturmreise. That was a week's worth of printing, that thing. Was that paint water or was that my drink that I spilled over this model? I am not sure. But I asked for money in return. That is fair. I usually say to the people in my group, I usually say, oh yeah, it'll be about this much per print. But if you've got something to swap, I'll happily take a swap instead. Because, like, I'm not interested in turning 3D printing into work for me. But if I can make something for someone else and get something fun in return that I can paint on stream, for example. Actually, there's a model that I've been meaning to paint for a video. A 40k model. Shh. I don't play 40k anymore. Every now and again, I will permit myself one odd model. But someone had that particular model and swapped it with me for some prints. So that worked out quite well. How am I out of focus again? I mean, this is always the case. I am always out of focus. How much have I been drinking? Is that why I'm out of focus? No, I'm always out of focus. Andre says, don't have a friend with a 3D printer, but I do have a friend with a tattoo machine. He isn't getting near me with that. Oh. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to keep the receiver, the body of the anti-tank gun in teal, because at the moment I'm doing the recoil sled at the bottom and I'm doing the receiver in this teal, as well as the gun shield. Close says, do that too. Traded a few 3D prints for some 40k 5th edition card deck. Because yes. Fair enough. I can't say I'm particularly interested in anything card related. No objections to it, just not my thing. I do want to get some freehanding on the chest armor for these, but I have not decided what that actually will be. I took part in a 10-minute painting challenge at Warlord Games 2 years ago? No, last year. Because it was the release of Konflikt 47. And given that I have a wide variety of very quick techniques when it comes to painting, and I can throw stuff together quite efficiently. It's not a well painted model, but this is a fully painted complete model. And I spent probably half of the time trying some freehand on the chest armor rather than, you know, actually doing anything sensible like painting the armor or the uniform or the helmet. There we go. So now all of the anti-tank guns are out of the way. I should be a little safer when it comes to my painting handle. Speaking of my painting handle, I'm going to have to switch painting handle. So this version in black is the version with the clamp, and you see there's two layers to it. The bottom layer is for a 25mm base, such as fireflies, you know, over here, and it fits the lipped bases and the hollow bases and disc bases, basically anything that's a 25 circle or a 20mm square. The top one is then for 32 round, but will also fit a 25 square. So you see it's slightly raised up now because it's on that top tier. However, and I did mention this earlier in the stream, my commander is on a 40mm base, and it does not stretch any further than that. But conveniently, I have a different version. I made several versions of this, and this is one of them for magnets or blue tack. And I don't really use magnets in bases, but I do use blue tack. So there we go. No drama. Ratman says you should have won that 10-minute competition. Yeah, it's fine. I had fun and I got a model out of it. I won a Stahltruppen model because I got to keep the model I painted. That's fine. Strictly speaking, I have one more Stahltruppen than is on screen in front of you here, because I do have that one, because that one's painted. It is downstairs on my painted shelf. I do have a weird ritual? I don't think ritual is the right term. Like, it's just a process that I have. When I finish painting a model for a game that I'm actively playing, it will go on one shelf. So behind me here, that bookcase is absolutely filled with unpainted models. And when I paint a model, it goes from that shelf to a different shelf where this is all the painted stuff. However, once it goes to a game, or rather when it comes back from its first game, then it goes on to the shelf for that game. So the painted shelf is this kind of purgatory halfway house kind of thing where I've painted it but I haven't used it in game, so it doesn't count yet. And there is absolutely no way that I could sort all of my models that I own in terms of that, because I've no idea which ones I've used in what games. Things like my orcs for 40k. I played quite a bit of 40k many years ago, but I also have painted quite a few of those after I stopped playing, because it's just the models that I had, and I wasn't buying new models. But those ones did not see games in the same way that the previous ones had. similarly, there's quite a few models that I own that I don't play the game for. Like Star Wars Legion. I would love to play a game of Star Wars Legion at some point. I can't even work out how army list creation works, so I need to sit down with someone who plays it locally and work that out. I'm pretty sure I have all of the all of the cards for the units I own. And Moonstone, which is something I keep mentioning. I should just paint some Moonstone. I need to paint some Moonstone. Chat, make sure I paint some Moonstone soon. Oh, his butt armor is visible through the cloak here. Okay, and that's that one done. Let's see if I can work out who the commanders were. I think they all had cloaks. There's one of them. Oh, that's the reloading special model. Oh, that was actually really easy. I thought I was going to take a minute to find them, but there you go. So, if I remember right, and I probably don't, the one I've just painted there is from the starter set, the Konflikt starter set. That one with the knife is from the Axis starter army, and then that is the reloading dire armor special model. Probably. Andre says, can you make a viable Konflikt 47 armor without dudes in power armor? It's not a trope I enjoy, but the game seems fun. Yes. In fact, almost every army can do that. So the Americans can do firefly spam, and they've got plenty of other infantry choices that aren't power armor, such as the Paragons. They're not. I think they are. Paragons are actually armor 6, but they're not in. Like the models are not heavily armored. So you just avoid their heavy armor for the Americans. For the Axis, you go for monster spam. Schreckwolfen, Totem Core, and Nachthalben. I also have some half-painted Nachthalben nearby. These guys. Gribbly monstery creatures. Some of them have spines and claws and like electronic stuff sticking out of their skin. They're great. Absolutely horrifying models. Definitely recommend them. They're actually very similar to the Ghosts in a way. They work slightly differently, but they are fast and field craft, which kind of puts them in that similar kind of category. Same as Paragons work in the same way. For Soviets, you've got the Daughters of the Motherland and the Muraz Ghul. Again, the Daughters of the Motherland are armor 6 because they are wearing light armor, but they're not in powered armor. Who am I missing? Japanese and Brits. Do the automatons count as power armor in your idea? Because you can just make an entirely automated army and that's not power armor, but it kind of has the same mechanical aesthetic, so I'm not sure if that counts or not from what you're talking about. And then for the Japanese, as much as I love my assault frames, and I wouldn't go without them. Firstly, the assault frames are like samurai power armor, so it's cooler than just power armor. But if you don't want power armor, focus on the ghosts. Shibito and the regular Shiboru Rifle Squad, which I think is a good squad. I'm basically always bringing my Shiboru rifles now. I just made the Ashigaru models as, not as a joke, but as like a fun thing that I might use every now and again, but probably not a lot. But those Shiboru rifles are in every single list I bring. Solid squad. So yeah, I think the game, most people, other than Stahltruppen, most people aren't bringing a lot of powered armor. Like, you often see power armor in various armies, but like one squad here or there. It's very rare that you're seeing full power armor armies except for the Stahltruppen, and that's probably just because the Stahltruppen are like, so many of them are cheap models given away for free and in all the starter sets and stuff, so people have a lot of them. Andre says, automatons are fine, I just don't like Space Marine type armor. Well, you probably don't like my proxy assault frames that I made then. Because they're just made of Space Marine bits with some samurai stuff slapped on to hide it. The thing is, I really don't like the Games Workshop Space Marine. I don't find that an interesting design. Like, I'm much more interested in, if I was, when I was playing 40k, I was playing Orcs, and I was playing as the Tanith First and Only. Mainly because of the books. But I never really liked the Space Marines. But when I came over to Konflikt 47, and this is first edition Konflikt 47, I actually really liked all of the options for the powered armor here, because they look different and distinct. Like the Galahad suit looks like a 1940s version of knightly armor with just more tech than is reasonable for that era. Obviously it's a science fiction game. But I can see why you're not interested in that, so there's plenty of options. And yeah, every nation can do it. And in fact, some nations are better if you do it that way. Like, the British Automaton platoon is great. Axis Monster Spam, Schreckwolfen and Totem Core. That's a strong combination. Yeah, when I was first starting, kind of when we first kicked over to second edition, it was very difficult for me to deal with anyone who brought a unit of Totem Core and a unit of Schreckwolfen. And a lot of Axis players were doing that. And bringing one of each isn't like, that's not a power play. That's not like an overpowered thing. It's just I, as the Japanese, didn't have the understanding yet to be able to deal with that. And it's still difficult even now, but I've learned like what units to place in what positions. For example, Shiboru Cannon. Stop shooting Shiboru Cannon at tanks. Shoot them at the Schreckwolfen. Much more effective. Let's see if I can pick out the special weapons. Now I've got the anti-tank guns here. I think I made 3 light machine guns. Yeah, I did. So here's light machine gun number 1. And we're out of focus. Here we go. And I've just mixed all of my black into my teal, so now I need more teal. Not paying attention. I apologise if you can hear any background noise. The neighbours appear to be having a punch-up. Or just having fun in the back garden because it's warm and it's nicer to be outside than it is inside, but I'm hearing a lot of noise. Hopefully it's not too bad over the microphone. Partly why I have the music on. Drown out everyone else. I'm going to be interested to see when I'm done, or kind of when I get towards the end of this project, because I'm painting the armor in the same style as the uniform, but I'm painting it with just the teal. I'm painting the armor with the teal and the uniform with the blue-grey. But the same technique, and I'm mixing both with black. So at the end, when I'm done, how much of a differentiation will there be between the uniform and the armor? Interesting question. And we shall have to wait and see, because that will just be whenever I'm done painting. Ratman says, can only hear the dogs. That's fair. The dogs are welcome. Actually, it might be that they were feeding the dogs. That's what all of the noise was. Whilst I do like the CO cast that Warlord uses, for very thin bits like the Sashimono on the assault frames and for this bayonet. Not necessarily ideal. Also, light machine gun with a bayonet. I think I'm done with this one. Yep. Wow, we've really eaten through time, haven't we? It's already 8:30. Very, very warm, so I'm drinking rather a lot more than I usually would. Saying that, I do drink a fair amount. People are always complaining at work about how much water I'm drinking, because I'll easily drink like 3 litres through the day, and that's just on a normal day. Recently I've been drinking even more than that. Yeah, I really did want more of a stippled look than this. I think it'll be okay once I'm done, but oh, are we? Yep, we're interfering with the that painting handle again, so got to be careful with the light machine gunners as well. Clove says, man, I hate editing, because me and my ADHD mind came up with cool intro, and I'm actually planning to make it, but it would require more editing skills than I was used to. Sometimes you do just have to go with the easy options, and sometimes you do want to go for just a bit more of an elaborate fun thing. It's always worth it to try out something like that, because even if it takes a while and it doesn't really work out, you've tested out some of the other the other tools in the software. It's probably something that I actually need to do more of, is just play around with other things that the software can do. Speaking of editing weird, interesting things, did anyone notice that in a couple of my recent videos, I've been doing some stop motion, kind of just randomly having models disappear off with stop motion? Is that fun? Do people like that? Should I carry on? Yes, you should, says Clove. Thank you. I will continue. I think they're kind of fun. It does take a little bit of time to actually make them. And weirdly, I'm recording a video and turning the video into individual frames so that I can then run the frames as... How many years have I been using this? How many years have I been using this and it's finally broken? Huh. Hopefully this one will work. I've got one of the old ones to hand. But just because I never threw it in the bin, I think. And yes, I do realise that I'm using the orange swing arm on... I have to detach that as well, don't I? I'll tell you what, because that's going to take a minute to take off, because that's glued in place. So what I'll do instead is I'm actually just going to switch over to the other one. And I shall swap parts on that some other time. Yeah, on this one, the top of the ladder is open, so I can just pull it off and it all dismantles itself no matter what. But on the other one, I've got a cap that I've glued in place to prevent it from coming apart, which has the advantage of it not coming apart and has the disadvantage of it not coming apart. Right, where was I? Was I actually done with this one? Yeah, I think I was done with this one. What was I talking about before I was so rudely interrupted? I have no idea. Ratman says F. Yeah, F for my painting handle. It's fine, I can rebuild it. I have the technology. In fact, it won't even be that hard. Andre says, I like your technical difficulties card. Good example of easy but effective. Technical diff... Oh, do you mean the technical derpiculties? Because that is My Little Pony character Derpy Hooves. Because that picture is actually one that I wrote for My Little Pony website many years ago. I drew that. Bit of artwork. I don't draw much anymore. I should. I like drawing. Pencil drawing was some of the earliest artwork I ever kind of experimented with. I remember when I was very young, I had like a book of, like a really basic book of World War II planes. As in, page 1, here's a Spitfire, here's here's its top speed and its like altitude ceiling and some other basic information, and it's like which variant of Spitfire, which which year, what fuel is it using. No, just generically a Spitfire, and then it was a picture of a Spitfire, and then the same thing for a bunch of other planes, mostly British planes, British book, but there were a few American and German planes in there as well. I don't know if there were any Soviet or Japanese or Italian or any of the other European nations planes in there. If I can find that book, that would be very interesting. But the point is, I would copy the drawings, the paintings of the planes, and I would just draw them out just with pencil on paper. So that's where I started my artistic side. Oh, I'm being really messy with this one. I have to be careful. Andre says, yep, that card. That was quite a long time ago that I did that one. And the thing is, that's not even one of the better ones. Because that was kind of just a quick sketch to be just as a more of a joke image than actually like a detailed one. So I've got a picture of Philomena, who's a phoenix from the same series, and a battle picture of Twilight Sparkle casting a massively powerful energy blast, like full-on anime style. And there was a lot of color grading that went into both of the shading that went into both of those two pieces. I think I still have the physical versions of those. But it would not be hard for you to find those on the internet, because I use the same name for everything. Andre says, as a Dutchman, I approve of the orange one. Fair enough. This filament, because this is for the plastic printer, so this is made of filament. This, it's supposed to be like a glow-in-the-dark filament. I think it does reflect off of UV light. But it's kind of disappointing because it doesn't look any different under UV light than it does under normal light. But everything else under UV light doesn't light up. So it's just like, this is lit up, but everything else isn't. And I guess there are some artistic things you could do with that, but it's not just a thing in its own, just a thing on its own. It does need like other things combined. I have up there, we're not going to be able to get a good camera angle of that. Probably not. One of the many Nerf guns on my wall, I designed 3D models for every single hole and vent and little odd detail in the bodywork so that I could plug them with my original intention was just to plug them and then go over it with some epoxy to smooth it all out. But the plugs I printed out of this orange, and so I decided I'm just going to make it an orange, like orange and white design, so that whenever I'm playing in a night fight kind of game, because there were a few events in very dark places that I could go to and use a UV light and be lit up, just the orange lit up, and everything else wouldn't be. I never ended up taking it there, but Terrain by Aaron. Hi, how you doing? Disappointing sounds like an ex-girlfriend. Sorry I entered the room mid-conversation. I have no idea what part of the conversation you came in on, but welcome. Have fun on the stream. I am finally painting something that isn't fireflies, after having painted fireflies for the last 62 years. I will at some point have to take a picture of the fireflies and post that on the community tab. I'll do that at some point this week. But for the moment, I am just going through my Stahltruppen. And I've actually got a decent way through them. What have we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So I've got 9 done on this first step, which is about half, I think. Gunslinger pose. Love this one. Getting the right balance of this teal versus the black is very difficult. Like, I am constantly going back and forth. I'm going too far in both directions every time. Yeah, see, that's way brighter than I was doing a minute ago. Yeah, it's about right. I'm kind of worried about just how messy it looks at this stage. I know it's going to come together. I know it's going to come together because I painted similar styles to this so many times before, but... yeah, it kind of feels like I'm just not painting it properly. It just feels like I'm just splotching on, because I kind of am. I am just splotching in the middle of each panel, and just that one step doesn't look good by itself. Especially as I've no intention of doing multiple coats of this. This really has to be a single coat, because multiple coats at this stage will not help it. It'll actually kind of spoil the effect. There we go. That's 10. 2, 4, 6, 7. Have I got 17? I thought I had more than 17 in Stahltruppen. I've lost track of chat. Hang on. Local man wrongly sentenced to 10 years of painting fireflies. Walk 3. The fight is not over. More on page 6. Thank you, Yuli, for the onion levels of reporting there. I've got 10 models into my Stahltruppen. The fireflies are a long and distant memory. They are like we don't have to think about them anymore. They're not here. They can't hurt us anymore. They can't hurt us. I can actually just put him there on top of that camera, because now he's in that camera view. There you go. Because now you can see a firefly, but I can't. Although I will be able to see it every time I look up. And it will very quickly get annoying. Andre says, rule one of painting, it looks like shit until suddenly it doesn't. It depends on what technique you're using, right? This technique absolutely follows that, because there are multiple steps that I'm building together to make a whole pattern, like a whole style. And with certain steps missing, other steps don't look good. But there are certain styles where each step is a coherent, full effect. And even though you're adding to it with further techniques, like, I really like the idea of I don't want to call it performance art, because that sounds like pretentious and stuff, but it really is what I mean, in that there are certain people who create like a piece of art, like a painting or something else, but the process of them making it is in itself an artwork, like performance art, like almost like a dance that they make a painting with. And I don't mean like just watching someone create art, because that's cool. Like, just watching someone else be creative is just it's just an enjoyable thing. But I mean specifically people who put on a show of how they create. And I'm wondering, how could you do that? How would that be possible in miniature painting? And I definitely don't have the skills for it. Clove says, did you buy all these Stahltruppen models, or you just bought one box and 3D printed torsos? None of mine have 3D printed torsos. All of mine are legit models. I have 3, that one, and this guy. So these are the resin ones that come in the various special edition models for various things. And then I think the rest is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sprues of the regular of just Stahltruppen. I do still have all of the legs and millions of arms and heads left over, but I want to do Italian Stahltruppen with them rather than just copying the Axis ones as is. But that means I've been saying that for nearly a year, so I just need to get on with it. part of me is worried that this is too messy, like I just said a minute ago. And the other part of me is thinking that I'm not being strong enough with this colour. Because I do want this to look pretty... yeah, striking is the word. I want it to be very saturated, striking kind of look at the end. Andre says, I noticed that on my bolt action sprues I have spares for everything but the torso, so I guess that's normal. Yeah, that's absolutely normal. When you get a metal kit or a resin kit, you might get an extra part or 2 extra parts here or there to have some options, but those kits generally you're limited. Like it's the more parts you have, the more expensive it is to make. Whereas on a plastic sprue, the machine that, like the injection molding machine that uses the mold to make that sprue, is a certain size. And so once you put a few models on there, you can just keep putting more stuff in there. So instead of having just one model, you have 3 or 4 or 6 models. But then you can have loads of different weapon options as well, just by having more heads, more arms, more bags and stuff. And it makes the kit much more versatile. And you can do it with other materials, it's just way more inefficient to do it. And so plastic kits, because of their kind of the cost of adding an extra piece here or there, is basically nothing. And so the company's quite happy to give you, like, here's a sprue of 6 with 6 with 6 rifles, but also you get 2 light machine guns and 2 submachine guns and parts to make an officer, and why not a bazooka or a Panzerschreck or a light mortar or whatever, so that you've got all of these options. Close says, recommend reusing spare arms and heads as base decorations for Konflikt 47 beasts. Have you seen the base for my linebacker? Because that's a very good idea. Have you... We haven't shown this model off on stream recently. Mainly because I have literally done no more work to it since last time. But here's my Cossack light walker for my Soviets, and here's the dead Ashigaru on the floor from my Japanese. I really need to sort out the base for this. I need to do the snow on the base for this, and then it's basically done. Also, for anyone who saw my Sasori, the Type 6 Sasori, that model is ripping up a Firefly. I was tempted to just make his torso out of a blob of green stuff and just be really messy, but then I did 3D print just a US Army shirt. Actually, technically I also printed the jetpack, because that's not an official jetpack. Shh, don't tell Warlord. Gonna have to go for yet more teal. I'm gonna need some black soon as well. I've churned through this paint so fast. It's weird because I'm not exactly painting a full layer over everything. I'm painting this really scratchy, inconsistent splotches, and yet it's using up paint really quickly. Almost more than if I was painting a nice consistent coat. Probably isn't it? It's probably more that because it's so quick and messy to do that I am just painting over a wider area more quickly. How long have we got left? We got 4 minutes left. That's loads of time. I think given that we got pretty far into this step, I might just finish this step off stream, and then next stream we'll come in with the next step, because will I? It depends. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll have time. No, because I'm still finishing up the fireflies, aren't I? And I have to work out a video for next week, so I probably won't have time. If I have time, I'll try and get some of this done so that we can skip ahead in stream to the next one. So stream next week. We'll be continuing painting the Stahltruppen and the Vogelspinner. My video for next week, I don't know. I've got a few in production, but nothing's at that point where it's ahead of the others and I can just say, yeah, a couple hours here and I'll be finished. So I actually don't know what my video will be this week. I have a couple of options, a couple of videos that are partway done, and then I've also got some videos that are in early stages, but they're low effort or low input videos, so they can be quite quick to churn out. But it depends. I guess I just have to pick one, get stuck in, and and do one. Like do one video. I think I'm going to move to a new part of the wet palette because that paper is looking a bit worn through. I've been stabbing it for the last 2 hours, so I'm not surprised. Oh, yeah. Helps if I put a model on the painting handle. The painting handle is no good if it doesn't have a model on it. So I'll tell you what, I'll finish up this guy and then we'll end the stream. So if anyone has any questions, any suggestions, accusations, insults, or nice comments, you're allowed to make a nice comment, that's also possible. Please ask questions now so that I can answer them before the end of the stream, and then I'll let you all get on about your day. See, that's a nice effect, that kind of really scratchy look there. I definitely won't be able to repeat that now that I've said that. Andre says, at some point, could you show how you pack your armies for transport? Yeah, I can. You're going to be disappointed because I literally just throw them in an ice cream tub with a bit of kitchen roll. And that's fine. That works. I have never broken a model in an ice cream tub transporting it to and from a game. I have had models break in proper transport containers, and I have had models break, like pulling them out of boxes and dropping them on the floor and stuff like that. But I've never had a model break in one of my ice cream tubs. And when I say ice cream tub, I literally mean like go to your supermarket, buy a litre of ice cream, eat the ice cream, wash out the tub. That's your model transport. Look, Ferrero Rocher makes my wet palette. Kelly's Kelly's Ice Cream makes the best transport container for models. People get so mad when I say this. I once posted a picture of some of my models in an ice cream tub, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to a game. I wasn't really showing off the ice cream tub. It was just like, that's how I was transporting them, so I just showed a picture of that. And people just could not accept that it was real. One guy was like, oh no, it's fake. He's just doing that to as rage bait. And I'm like, no, that's how I transport my models. And someone else was like, oh yeah, I bet he like triple varnishes all of his models, and he puts like foam in between them and like shaped bits of foam to protect them. I was like, no, if they're lucky they get a bit of kitchen roll in the bottom. And like not per model, that's one kitchen roll per ice cream tub. But the other thing is that I also treat my models in a certain way that really, really upsets people as well. Because let's say I'm playing a game with these Stahltruppen. Oh no! My token firefly has died. I'll fetch him back in a minute. Let's say I'm playing a game with these Stahltruppen, and I've got a few Stahltruppen set up. Anyone else would be like, take measure, and they'd measure one, and they'd move it, and then they'd measure the next one, and then they'd move it, and then they'd probably they wouldn't measure every single one, but they'd very carefully move them like that, and they'd be in position ready for shooting. I don't do that. Because I bunched them up like that, and I was like, okay, I'll measure the first one. That one's there. Just grab them in a handful, rub all them together so that the paint wears off, stamp them down, maybe shuffle them a bit so the bases aren't overlapping. There you go, that's fine. I have no idea where the firefly has gone, and I'm pretty sure that my torch is out of battery as well. It is, yeah. Unfortunately, with these lights shining on my face, my eyes are accustomed to brightness. So when I look anywhere else in my room, it is just darkness at the moment. So once I turn the lights off, my eyes will, my night vision will come back, and I will be able to find it. At the moment, all I have to do is just not step on him. If you hear the sound of crunching plastic in the background, just move on. Nothing to see here. These are not the droids you're looking for. I think I said I was going to finish the stream on the last one, and then I've picked up another one. So, free Stahltruppen painting. Or maybe this was the last one that I said. Whatever. I'm going to finish when I finish. I'll finish the stream when I finish painting this model. So, yeah, questions in, and then we'll end up the stream. Actually, I think it was this one that I said that too. Clove says, "Don't move, or the firefly will break." I think that's basically done. A few bits here. There are so many armor panels all over this. Like the Stahltruppen armor isn't like one coherent suit. It is just a bunch of armor panels bolted together. Andre says, with the light on your face, I'm also accustomed to the brightness. That camera really doesn't like low light. So if I... back in the day, many years ago, I used to do gaming like Let's Plays and stuff. And I would have this camera view up, but I didn't have any light shining on me. And so this, basically this frame here on the top corner of my screen, I basically had it in the same place I do now, was just a black square on the screen. I don't know why I even bothered continuing doing that, because that's not a useful thing to do, just having this black frame. When it was daylight, there was at least a little bit of light so that my face was kind of lit up, but really not that much. It's only when I got essentially when I got this specific set of lights that I've got enough light for that camera to actually pick up anything of value. Clovex says, Noe, did you do Let's Plays video? Okay, I mean, in that case I didn't. Yeah, sorry I mentioned it. I didn't do Let's Plays. That's what Clovex says. Yuli says, work was busy, but I wanted to ask earlier. Absolutely fine, don't worry. Work comes first in all that. Maybe we can talk about on the next stream, what would a Konflikt 47 based skirmish game look like? I think we can expand on this next stream, but I actually kind of want to answer it a little bit now. So there is a skirmish version of bolt action that keeps floating around, and it's god awful because it basically takes the bolt action rules, but instead of moving one order die moves one squad of 5 or 10 models, you move one individual infantry model, and you have probably 10 or 15 infantry models per side depending on how you set them up, and it just doesn't play very well. Essentially the defender has a massive advantage, just so much of an advantage, because bolt action is written to be like a small battle game. However, if you take the setting and write a skirmish game around the setting, that's absolutely possible, but you would have to write it from the ground up. So if you look at something like Stargrave, something like Necromunda, Moonstone, again, just an excuse to say Moonstone. I don't actually think Moonstone's necessarily the right thing to look at here, but maybe, because Moonstone does have its special abilities that would work in the same way as Rift abilities might work. But one of the things you have to do when you play a skirmish game is you have to shrink the scale of everything. So something like a Stahltruppen in Konflikt 47 is a standard model. A Mark 1 Automata, a Daughter of the Motherland, the assault frames, they're all the standard. In something like a skirmish game, they need to be the big scary thing. And so if you have 10 models on an Axis side, you can't have more than maybe 3 at most Stahltruppen. You can't have more than 1 Ursus, and you can't have vehicles at all. And so you have to write it in such a way that you're focusing on individual infantry combat rather than squad-based combat, but also removing things like vehicles and the superpowered stuff. I have played, what's it called? Infinity. Infinity had a good kind of concept that you didn't move like, oh, my model moves 3 inches or it can run 6 inches or whatever. There were it's a massive grid on the board of like 5 inches, and you could just move to the next grid, and you could be considered to be anywhere in that grid when it comes to the line of sight or cover, and if someone else got into that grid with you, they'd fight you in close combat kind of thing. So there's that kind of thing to consider as well when it comes to finesse of the game, because bolt action is fairly strict when it comes to finesse, but skirmish games need to be much more flexible. Not always, but a lot of the better skirmish games are more fluid, more fast-paced, less detailed in their rules. But like, comparative to a full war game, you have more detail per model because you only have 10 models rather than 50. But the overall complexity of the whole game ends up being slightly less, even though the models are making more complexity. But we can discuss that at length next time, because that's definitely an interesting topic. I have had thoughts on the scale of a game, ranging from like 6mm mass battle games up to 75mm duel games where you just have one model per side, and how much complexity and how much convolution and how much kind of back and forth do you need in a game. There's a lot to that when it comes to game design. Right, now that we have painted a bunch of Stahltruppen, so I got this far, so all of these are painted to that first step. So I've got all of these, and the Vogelspinner still to go, and then we need to work out what we're doing next. Probably metallics. I want to get some metallics down, and I want to get the uniform as well, wherever the uniform is visible. But that will be next stream. So next week on Monday, it will be a painting stream carrying on with the Stahltruppen, and then the video for next week is, I don't know, whatever video ends up at the top of the list. I've got a few under the way. It'll just be whichever one gets done first. But for now, well past 9 o'clock, I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you all very much for watching. There's quite a few of you turned up today, so it's been nice. And yeah, see you all later.